It's time again for the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast with Dr. John Dentico. The mission of our podcast is to provide 21st century leadership training for a talent-driven world. We help organizations implement strategies and practices designed to attract, hire, engage, and retain top talent while mitigating the effects of burnout. Our guests are experts in various fields of organizational dynamics, including, but not limited to, leadership, management, communication, and coaching. They bring a world of knowledge and solutions to our viewers and listeners. I am sincerely grateful for their participation and ideas. So let's dive in. And if you enjoy our podcast, please like, share, and subscribe. We genuinely appreciate your support. Hello again and welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Dr. John Dentico. With me today is Rebecca Gebhardt. Rebecca is a best-selling author, former top 1% sales leader with over 20 years of experience leading sales teams that have generated over $50 million in revenue. Rebecca specializes in guiding emerging sales leaders through the transition from sales leaderboard to leadership, while helping corporate sales leadership teams strengthen their leadership pipeline. I am truly pleased that she is here with me today. Welcome, Rebecca. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. As I like to say, let's just dive right in. And Rebecca, you speak of transitioning from the sales leaderboard to leadership. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yes. So there are a lot of emerging leaders across all different facets. And so my focus is sales leadership. But a lot of times we pluck high performers. In my world, that would be where they are on the sales leaderboard. Every sales team has a leaderboard for just like in golf, just like in many things where you get to see who's selling the most. And according to our research, 75% of sales leaders say that they're in the top 25% of the sales leaderboard. So that's what we do. And when I say we, I say the status quo. We promote our very top talented people because they have proven themselves with a track record, promote them into leadership, but don't give them the tools they need to succeed. And so what we're ending up with are these frontline sales leaders or frontline leaders at any organization, but these frontline sales leaders who have the biggest impact over the sales team's success, and they're flailing around for a while. And that it's a very expensive learning curve for them and for the organization.
I found that in my experience, my work experience, that also exists for people like engineers. So engineers or scientists, they're great. Oh, they're phenomenal people and they do great work. And then we promote them into a leader job, leadership position. And we don't give them the tools that they need. And they're trying to figure out, what do I do next? What do I work on? Where's the drawings? No, you have to talk to the people here. You have to get them organized. So I can completely align with the issues and the stresses that you face. So let me ask this question. How would you characterize your perspective on leadership? What does leadership mean to you?
I really think that leadership is creating the circumstances for others to win. And we at Rise Up Consulting categorize that with you do that through helping create the right mindset, the proper behaviors, and the proper skill sets. So, those kind of three different prongs. And when you do that, you create winners, right? You create the circumstances to win. And so, I have a mantra I love to say, but we want to be doing the things that matter with the people that matter for the reasons that matter in a way that matters. And if we can all be more self aware on what circumstances are for ourselves, and then as leaders figure out or help, not do it ourselves, but help our teams, empower our teams to figure that out, you get a lot more accomplished in the same amount of time.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing as a split here in a sense that when I talk, like I told you before, I'm on my 51st podcast I'm going to publish today. And when I talk about leadership all the time, people say the same thing. It's really about what that individual does and how they bring the teams along and inspiration. I have a little bit different take, and that to me is, I would say it this way: leadership is what people do together. It's not so much about one person, if you will, bestowing leadership on other people. It's how do you create an environment where, as you say, everyone matters. Everyone comes to the table with ideas and different perspectives. Just an interesting twist, so to speak, on that.
Yeah, and I completely agree with your definition. I think the difference in our definitions there, one has an issue to do with my strengths, so I'm high on individualizing things, so I'm using my own strengths as we define that. But then just generally, sales really is an individual sport. It's not a sometimes it's a really a true team where you've got everyone working together to land an account, or they have specific roles at different points in the sales pipeline. But sales teams are different than other, like you were talking, engineering teams working together on a project. Some teams need a lot more synergy, and so absolutely, the leader's job is to bring people together, bring out the best in everyone, make sure you've got the right people on the so the circumstances overall for the team as well. I just think the focus in sales leadership, and maybe this is wrong, right? I'm more curious than I have been lately on some of these things of what I've believed and having conversations like this with others. But I just think sales in general, you're really trying to get each salesperson to sell a ton. And how do they do that? Leadership is a team sport. Sales is more of an individualistic
It's
sport.
interesting because I might have a little bit of a different twist on that. So if you don't mind me saying,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So last week I was doing a strategic thinking session and I make a differentiation between strategic thinking and strategic planning. Simply put, strategic planning looks to find answers to questions. Strategic thinking is about making sure you're asking yourself the right questions. Okay. So it's really important to get the stuff on the table before you run around and try to fix something. What are the
Yep.
real issues here? So last week I was working with a company. They build fences in the country around schools and hospitals and data centers and things like that. 7 locations throughout the United States. And we did a strategic thinking session. And in that, we have a cross section of people that come. So we didn't have just the salespeople. We had salespeople there. But we had the branch managers, the project managers, the president of the company, the general manager, all working together, all in a sense doing leadership together. And it didn't take about 40 minutes for one of the sales guys to stand up and say, the problem with not maximizing the sales of the company in general is us. We're the problem. Not meaning him in sales per se, but the fact, without going into too much detail, is that they themselves were not internally organized across the board to maximize the efficiency of their subcontractors. Now, the way they work is they get the job, they bid it, they cost it out, they submit it, they get the bid, and then they hire a subcontractor to actually install the fence. So the problem was that it was taking too long or inefficient, if you would say, to get
Mhm.
all the materials in one spot for them to then have the installer go out and put it in. And all the delays inside their own internal organization was hampering their ability to do twice as many projects as they normally would, because there were delays. Where's the locking mechanisms? Where's the gates? Those kinds of things. So it's very interesting. And yet they were all talking about how all the sales teams could really work together. They had 7 locations, 2 sales per people in each location. And there were a lot of them that were just not doing the individual things, as you were saying. Any reflection on that?
Not take into effect what's going on. When there are different levels of leaders and organizations, depending on the size, if I don't know how big that organization, the fence company is, but if they don't have many layers of sales leaders, that sales leader's focus is not just going to be on sales, it's going to be on cross organizational develop, right? The stuff you were talking about. When you're in larger organizations, the frontline sales leaders, the ones I'm talking about, they're focusing on the sales team's success, right? Creating the circumstances for them to win. Then you have another leader above them, maybe a sales director, the VP of sales, maybe it's the owner. They're focused on the strategic. So, so it's not that sales leaders don't need to focus on strategic, those frontline, they absolutely do. But though these are these different transitions that follow people throughout their career. And when we don't know the situation, when we overgeneralize, there's always, that's a great point because there's always, okay, this is actually, it was more of a team. It depends on the type of sales culture and how the organization is set up. But I truly believe that a leader's job is to create the circumstances for their team members and their team to win. That team definition changes the level of leadership you're in, right? The setup of the organization. If you have a hybrid sales team, an individualistic sales team, or a true team where they got to make things happen. The example you were talking about there is really the sale, the customer service, the sale, the delivery, the customers. There's a lot that goes into that, and sales teams are
Yeah.
different. And so I just think that's such a great point. This is why, and I say this in my book, Leaderboard to Leadership. You can never take someone's advice, including my own, unless they know you really well. And the conditions and what made them successful are exactly the same as the conditions you find yourself in now, which never
Right.
happens. So I think what's really good is for us to be curious, open, and say, in that situation, absolutely yes. And we have to customize things based on the situation.
I agree. And certainly it's a fairly flat organization. So the sales guys are doing a lot of stuff. It's not just, but it's not mom and pop. They do significant amount of business, but they're flat. There's not that many folks in the organization. There's like 40. There's 40 people in the whole organization, and everything else is subcontracted out, which is a real way to save on costing and different things like that. So
Yeah, a good question to ask as a leader is, what is my ultimate responsibility? Who or what am I responsible to? It could be the organization. That's who you're responsible to, right? It could be, I think that's a good question to then structure what you're doing. And there's reflection. I love how you said there's a difference between strategic thinking and strategic planning. And leaders get paid to think, and you got to work those brain muscles and ask the right questions. But that's why I think it's so important for leaders to take time to pause. We're all in this rush. We got to solve the problem. And like you said before, yeah, you solved the problem, but it wasn't the problem you were supposed to solve, or the answer was right over here, but you were looking over there. So,
I use 2 metaphors. One is as a medical issue, right? Oftentimes in strategic planning, we're trying to alleviate the symptom, but in strategic thinking, you're trying to figure out what the underlying problem is, that kind of thing. And the other metaphor I use all the time is buying an old house. You buy an old house, you wanna restore it to its original beauty. Hey, you gotta strip those walls back. You gotta get the paint and the wallpaper off and say, again, what are we really all about? And what is it that we're trying to do? So I think your points are very well taken. In fact, that leads me to the next question. So, Rebecca, here we go. I must say that I have a renewed emphasis on mission statements. It's something I've shied away from for a while because everybody goes, "You got a mission statement?" "Yeah, it's over there. It's hanging on the wall. Did you see it when you came in? You guys look at that every once in a while?" "No, we just walk by." Wait, it's there. We got it. Okay. So, as I say, I'm not interested in the ones that hang on the wall and people never look at, but the one that becomes the focal point of both for profit and not for profit organizations. In your opinion, how important is it for a mission statement as it relates to a top performing sales organization or to the recruiting efforts of that organization?
extremely important. There is a client of mine whose senior leadership team is reading Built to Last by Jim Collins. That talks about this, having your values and your purpose statement, which could be a mission
Same thing.
statement. This is different than the vision statement, right? When you know what you're focusing on in the long term, it's a big deal. As it pertains to your question, as it pertains to recruiting, I'm a millennial. I'm the oldest possible millennial. I call myself Grandma Millennial. I was born in January of 81, where millennials started. There are specific things that millennials and then Gen Z, Gen Alpha will be different. But you look at the pipeline of recruits, not that you're not going to recruit Gen X or baby boomers. I'm not trying to leave them out, but your answer or your question was about recruiting. And I talk about the future of leadership and sales leadership. People want to work with an organization that has a mission that it attracts better people to your organization. In sales, you will attract, there are cultures who just want to make a lot of money, and you got to make money to stay in business. So I'm not saying results are bad. I just firmly believe, after building sales teams myself, after working with sales organizations, the ones that are winning and they're winning sustainably have a purpose, they have a mission, they have values, and they recruit for those values and that culture. They attract people who want to stay around that organization because they see this is this company or the sales team's mission. This is what their goal is. Here's what mine are personally. I can accomplish this at work. And that's what we're going for. And the leaders who want to have a deeper conversation about this are it's slower in the beginning, right? It takes more time because you really got to think about this and these to define your purpose, to define the mission, it takes time. It's silly how long it takes, but to actually make it truly resonate for an organization or a sales team, but the ones that do it, man, oh man, you just see them scale and scale. And it's so fun to see the good guys win, as I like to say.
That really drives to the heart of it. Last week, when I was talking about this team that I was working with, I asked them be on our workup. I said, "Could you send me your mission statement?" Oh yeah, they sent. It was like 3.5 paragraphs long. I said, "I can't use this. Are you guys crazy? I can't use it." No. So I took the statement and I broke it down into a mission statement. I won't go into it. And we used it. It was one sentence. So that's all you get. One sentence, not 2 paragraphs. I call those people who want to cover all the bases. I call it a roulette wheel mission statement. And roulette wheel, you've seen a roulette wheel, the numbers and
Yeah.
everything. Okay. And then next to the roulette wheel, there's the table with all the numbers on it. And a roulette wheel mission statement is the person who walks in and puts money on every number. And so I'm going to win. So yeah, but you're going to lose a lot more
Imagine
money.
that.
That
Yep.
kind of a thing. But the best
Yep.
part was this. We finished the session. I had the one sentence up there and they said to me, "Hey, John, can we work on the mission statement?" I said, "Sure." So we took words out. They shortened it even more. And when they finished, they all pointed to it and they said, "That's who we are. That's what we do. That's us." And you could see the excitement. It was like a lifting in the room that they identified with that. So it's absolutely, to me, primary that you have to have something that is the guiding light, or to use a military parlance, it's where you plant your flag. Okay. This is
Yep.
my flag. We're going to live. This is what we die for right here. That kind of a thing. So I absolutely agree. Jump now because of that to another question, if I could.
Yep.
I believe that meaning is the greatest motivation force on the planet. That I was talking to one of my podcast guests who's from India, and he gave me this wonderful one-liner. I had to go clear across the planet to get this thing, and is that meaning is the new money. And I thought, wow, that was great. When you look at top salespeople in organizations, in your opinion, what gives them meaning? Is it merely about the next sale, the next contract, or is it something more at stake here when it comes to gaining meaning from the things that they do?
It depends on where that person is. So if we look at the patterns of human development, I would say absolutely once someone has reached a deeper self-awareness and is on their way to self-actualization and serving others, meaning intrinsic motivation to help other people, to have, but most people aren't operating with that operating system. And we all have to go through these phases in our life where it's like me, you know, like, let me survive. I share several stories of my own, not immaturity in my book, Leaderboard to Leadership, but just this, oh, when I was focused on the next sale, the next paycheck, I found success, but it felt really bad. I didn't know what it felt like. It's like when you're unhealthy and then you lose some weight, you're like, oh, can joints feel this way? It's kind of like, you don't almost realize it. But so wherever someone is on that journey, whether you're self-absorbed right now as a salesperson, that's okay. I hope you don't stay there, but that's okay. Because that's the truth, right? It's just that's the thing. But the minute where you can actually make something, I think sales is too extrinsically focused, right? Too many carrots. And so we confuse people with what they're doing. And here's another one. Here's another carrot. Here's another carrot. So what do you really want to do? What does this mean? How can you fulfill your purpose and your God given talents and these strengths to use your role in sales and sales leadership to actually produce your purpose in life, this meaning? And it takes time. It takes intentionality with some of your strategic thinking. Asking yourself these questions that seem so boring. They really do until you answer them and you're like, no, this is the most intriguing conversation I've had with myself and other people. And what you'll find are the top producers who are top sustainably, right? They've actually built a career and a reputation off of being the best. They have a deeper sense of meaning. And you can't fake this, right? It's like when you recruit people, someone is superficial or when they're talking about something significant. And I know you would rather play in the significant pool than we would the success pool with little meaning.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's that old expression that says we're always in the act of becoming. Okay. So I get it. Listen, you're a young person, maybe you're 25, you got hired into a sales job, and wow, the prospect of making some money, buying a nice car, whatever it is. Okay, I'm good with that. They got no problem. And do as long as you do no harm. We don't just do no harm. And that's okay. But eventually when you read a lot about sales and you read about the top salespeople, they become a source of pain relief in a sense. They relieve someone's discomfort or pain from whatever service or product they're selling. So whether it's building a fence or providing buying wheels for your car, somewhere along the line, they are really working for you rather than just trying to sell you something. And I think it's a process, as you say. It's a process. You start maybe here, and then by you get to be 40, 45, you say, there's got to be more to it than this. I just can't. Everything feels hollow. As you get older, you just say, I really want to be involved with something important. What's my life really about? That kind of a thing. So I agree with you 100%.
I would say though, younger generations now are asking these
Right.
questions that Gen X and baby boomers took till 40 and 50 to ask. I had my own little quarter life crisis in my mid to late 20s. I was like, what am I doing? Is this what and start asking? But that I think is the difference now. People don't want to work their life away because it's going to produce money or this title. They care about what's happening, what's the progress on the inside, who am I helping, very concerned about the community and the world at large. And I just think it's awesome but no matter how old you are when you start asking those meaning questions, it's part of the process of being human. And so wherever someone finds themselves at, it's okay. If it took someone till they're 60, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's really okay. But the younger you do it, the more you can pinpoint what does my future self want out of me? When I look back, am I going to regret anything? Those are questions I like to ask for reflective questions. Who do I need to have around me? Am I hanging out with the right influencers? Does this company match my purpose? All great questions to ask.
I agree with you. Wherever it happens, it's a good thing. And you're right. I know my listeners and my viewers are probably going to gag at this, but that's okay. Because I talk about the big three all the time, the big three. And the big three is this. There are three things that if you were to survey the skilled talent pool as it exists today, 5 generations skilled. There's the big three. Number one is people are searching for values alignment. They want their values to be aligned with the organization. Do you care about the same thing I care about? I hope so. That kind of a thing. The second one is, this is huge. It's going to lead us in a sense to the next question. And that is, people want to be involved in the decision-making processes of the organization. People want to matter, just like you pointed out, at younger ages. They want to matter. They want their work to matter. They want a level of control and autonomy over their own lives. Or as I like to say, people want to be masters of their own fate. And then the third one is they want training and learning that will advance their professional career and hopefully influence their personal lives. So to me, those are the big three. And I tell organizations all the time, if you don't have these three things up front and personal to everyone who walks through the door, whether you're recruiting or whatever, you're missing a bet. You're just missing a big bet here. This is what people are looking for. So I absolutely agree with you that at younger ages, people are asking the really important questions. What does this mean to me? What meaning do I get out of this from being involved in it? And it's all about values alignment in many respects. So let me go here with this. In
Yep.
the last year, I turned my attention to the issue of burnout. And I believe that what I've talked about really helps mitigate a lot of that. I've had some great guests and I've traveled several roads or ideas about mitigating the effects of burnout. Based on your experience, what advice can you give my listeners and viewers about lessening or avoiding burnout?
Okay. This is the topic of energy management is a huge focus of mine. And I love that you are focused on it as well. I talk about the ability to go all in without burning out, right? Go all in, don't burn out. That was the cover on the top of the back cover of my first book about goal achievement, how to do this. And I believe it comes down to our energy management, but we have four types of energy. So we have spiritual energy, which is the force, the power. Why? What's the purpose? We have physical energy, which is our health. If you cannot physically be present, you're not getting enough sleep, you don't make better decisions, right? It's I'm oversimplifying. But then we have emotional energy, which is really our emotional intelligence, how long it takes us to get over things, right? Do we waste energy on things without emotional regulation? And then mental energy, which is our focus. And all of those wrap up into mental health. And how we increase our capability to burn out, you have to change your perspective on what's happening. And you have to understand that building up your tolerance and then resting. So those two things. So those are the energies, but it's shift your perspective of, oh, I'm so tired, or I'm the victim, or this is so hard. Because organizations a few years ago, it was like LinkedIn came out and they were said, we're going to give all our vacations mandatory week off. We're not even open this week. And I was like, that's good. But a week vacation doesn't help build people's energy capacity, right? Further it's just like physically, if you want to build muscle mass, you get a heavier weight, you do some reps, and then you rest your muscles so they can get stronger. You have to tear it down to build it up. You have to do that with yourself, with your capacity. But there has been research done about this too. But if you are stressed out and your perspective of that it's harmful for you, it's harmful for you. If you're stressed out and the perspective of it is, this is making me better, this serves a purpose, it doesn't produce negative impact on your health. And so I think it's such a huge topic, but one that I firmly believe in. And this is the responsibility of organizations to provide this training, but it's the individual's responsibility to work on it themselves because no great training from an organization, you can get exposed to the content, but you got to do the work. And the work happens in here
Right.
and an like your bosses and the organizations. But what you were saying with those three things, absolutely. People expect to get this development from work. They expect it. And the organizations who are providing nothing right now or like a random workshop, whew, going to be really hard to attract these top performers because or other organizations are going to do it. But this energy management, this burnout conversation, this mental health conversation should be talked about at work and then giving people space to work on it themselves.
I agree. I think you have to own it. You have to own it. If you're the kind of person, and believe me, I grew up with a person like this. My dad was like this, who never owned a thing. Okay. Now, I give him a pass because he was a PTSD survivor from World War II. Okay. And his family life wasn't that great either. Okay. So he had issues, but he never owned anything in terms of it was always somebody always doing something to him. He was the quintessential victim. And if you don't own it, one thing I learned from that was if you don't own it, you can't do anything about it because it's never your issue. It's never your problem. So I think, as you say, you have to own it. You have to stand up and own it. In some recent guests, I've been talking about this notion of fight or flight. Everybody knows fight or flight. You have two options. The answer is no. You have three options. You,
I'm a freezer. Fight, flight, or freeze. I freeze when.
I refer to it as a different thing. Fight,
Okay.
okay. Flight, or dig in and endure. Sometimes you can't run, and sometimes you can't fight back. So you dig in and you say, okay, I'm going to endure this. But one of the greatest books I've ever read, read it in 1997, was called Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, which I tell people all the time changed my life, changed my whole perspective on how things really provide meaning. And Frankl was the optimist. Find passion in your life, find purpose in your life, and this will enliven you. And now meaning's the new money. Now it's really starting to bubble up, if you will. And one of the things he talks about in the three ways you can make meaning, one is do something, write a book, ford a stream, climb a mountain, whatever. Two is the relationships you keep. Children give people a wonderful sense of meaning. And the third is how to suffer nobly, how to endure, and how to make the best of a bad situation actually gives you a sense of meaning in your life. And you think about people who may be in a bad job, people who are in a toxic environment, and they continue to do it because they may be the single breadwinner, for example, in a family, and bills have to get paid, and mortgages have to get paid, and ballet fees have to get paid, those kinds of things. Soccer
Now
fees.
you're getting personal. I just wrote a big check for my daughter's ballet.
Is that right? Let's see, there you go. As though I knew it. Unbelievable. But it's this whole thing of people endure and have to do that. And I think they're incredible people. You just can't pick up and run. But as I like to say, there comes a time, and this is an individual decision. No one can make this decision for anybody else, is when you have to decide whether you want to keep your job or lose your soul. And I think that more and more, and maybe even with the younger generations now, certainly with COVID now being a bit more in our rearview mirror, as you said, and people understanding what meaning really brings into their lives, you may have generations coming to the fore saying, I really don't want to lose my soul on this journey. I want to do something that truly matters for me. So whether you're in sales, at operations, whatever it might be. So it's very interesting. Any reflection on that?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. The only caveat I think I would add to that is, and this is not what you meant, but just in case
Sure.
someone heard this, is you either keep your job or lose your soul, or you change your perspective. You do what you were just saying and take responsibility. Sometimes there is, because I know that we can follow the same people who have the same problems at this job. They're like, I don't want to lose my soul. It's their problem. They go to the next job, the same problems follow them. And I just know that when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change, right? Dr. Wayne Dwyer said that. And I just think back to your point of strategic thinking and reflection. Um, and what do I take ownership of? What is my responsibility? And the mindset piece you're talking about here is ultimately our own responsibility. And sometimes you say, you know what, this job is killing me. I don't want to have this. And I've made those decisions in the past. And I just don't think this is aligned anymore, or whatever it may be. And that's okay. The important thing, because Frankel talks about this too, is yes, despite the circumstances, what do you have the power to choose? And if you get caught in somebody else's fault, somebody else's fault, somebody else's fault, and I actually tend, that's a space where I need to pull myself out a lot of. Any Enneagram people, I'm an Enneagram 4, so I play the victim. My ego plays the victim, I should say, I should clarify. And so I have to really be for my, this is truly hard for me. And so I have to catch myself and say, I'm not a victim. They're not a villain. I just need to make a different decision. I need to show up differently in this space. So that's the only thing I would add. I agree with everything you said. It doesn't need to be an either or. You can actually explore a different
No,
avenue.
I agree with you completely. The last piece is really when you almost reach a point where there's no alternatives anymore. But yeah, change your perspective. Hey, it's okay. I can deal with this. I have to see it in a different light. I have to come at this from a different perspective. I may have to differently, subjectively, yeah, whatever that person chooses to do. But I agree with you. There's a number of different roads that take us where we want to go, and I think again, individually, people have to make those choices. So we're getting to the end here of our wonderful discussion. And I'd like to ask you my world famous now. It's world famous since I've asked people from all over the world this question. If you had a magic wand and could wave it at an issue or problem in your work world, what would that problem be and why did you choose that?
Yeah, I think the big thing is I just wish organizations trained emerging frontline sales leaders in a better way. There was a stat that changed the trajectory of my business. And it was by the Harvard Business Review. They say the average age someone receives their first leadership promotions age 30, and their first leadership training is at age 42. 12 years of trial and error where we set real successful individual contributors up to inadvertently fail because we didn't do it. And our research showed that 80% of sales leaders received zero training once being promoted. So if I had a magic wand, I just wish that organizations set up an onboarding process for every new position someone held in an organization, whether it was their onboarding for sales, onboarding into sales leadership, onboarding into the C suite. And we just assume because of people's prior success, they have the knowledge. And we know that's not true. We've been taught, everyone talks about this assumption, but no one actually does anything about it, which drives me crazy, which is that's my mission to help people rise and thrive. That's our mission at Rise Up Consulting. But that would be my magic wand and something that I don't have a magic wand. So I'm trying to use my work ethic and the people around me on my team to help handle that.
The grind is hard. The grind is hard, but I love this one line from the movie A League of Their Own when Gina Davis, who plays Dottie, the best baseball player,
Yeah, of course.
is the
Yeah.
best baseball player, and her husband comes home. Bill Pullman comes home from war, and he's a little injured, but he's okay. And she realizes that, oh my God, we're going to go back to the dairy. He's going to be the manager. Life is going to be great. And she tells Jimmy Dugan, Tom Hanks's character, she's leaving. You know, I can't do it. And as she's walking away from him, she turns around. She says, she doesn't turn around. She's walking away. She said, Jimmy, it just got too hard. And you see the alcoholic stupor clear from Tom Hanks's face. And he looks at her and he says, it's supposed to be hard. It's the hard that makes it great. And I've always thought that's just a wonderful line. Tell me the name of your books.
My first book is called Beyond the Board. It's how to achieve your vision board goals in a fulfilling and sustainable way. So it's goal setting.
Okay.
And the second book is called Leaderboard to Leadership, how to earn and excel in your first sales leadership role.
Wonderful. I can't thank you enough. Great job. Sensational. I appreciate your time here today on the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. I wish you, your team, and everybody continued success in the future. Thank you so very much for your time. I truly appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. It was really fun.